Okay, it's 7 o'clock. If everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Andrea, would you lead us? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our City Council meeting this evening, Monday, February the 9th. Let's begin with roll call.
Tom Mikulek,
Here.
Ruth Smith, Jason Tate,
Here.
Andrea Zielinski,
Here.
Ellen Porter, here, Katie Williams, Zach Weiss,
Here.
Shelley Briggs Loosely, here.
The agenda there, we had a scheduled part for the Planning Commission interviews, but we had a no-show, so we did not have a special meeting at 6:30. So we are at the 7 o'clock regular meeting, and we're going to start with item number 4, Commission Reports. Anybody have a meeting? Zach?
So we, for the Economic Development Commission, we had 16 applicants for tourism grants. We had 9 of them were approved. 2 of them we approved with some partials, and then 5 of them were denied. But that was just because they didn't really meet the criteria for tourism grants in particular. But then from there, we kind of moved on to conversation about topics for the Economic Development Commission going forward, based more around economic development. It's been heavily on the tourism side for the last little bit. And so we're talking about bringing some new stuff onto the agenda, and that's exciting.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else have a meeting? Any ward reports? We're going to move to number 5, audience participation. And Dustin, it looks like you're first up. Dustin Babbitt.
For the record, my name is Dustin Babbitt, and I live in Roseburg.
And Dustin, you probably have to get pretty close to that microphone in order for us to hear you.
My name is Dustin Babbitt, and I live here in Roseburg. All right. Esteemed council members, I'm here to address a growing concern regarding the significant amount of trash and litter accumulating in our residential neighborhoods. While I do acknowledge the valuable work done by public groups, it is crucial to emphasize that the primary responsibility for extensive cleanup and implementing proactive measures ultimately lies with the city. While I don't mind and have actually come to rather enjoy, as I find it meditative and emotionally rewarding, I can no longer continue to personally finance, and again I emphasize, the city's responsibility. In less than 1 week, 4 days total, my 8-year-old son and I collected 6 bags full of litter from a single block radius, just from the Stevens to the intersection where Home Depot and Lowe's is at. 6 bags of trash. An effort that comes directly from my personal time and limited resources, but becoming an unexpected personal hobby. This sustained buildup not only detracts from the beauty of our once beautiful city and neighborhoods, but it also poses a significant public safety hazard, as dangerous items like discarded drug paraphernalia can easily be hidden in the clutter, risking harm to children and pets. I urge you to consider more proactive measures, including maybe the provision of trash bags by the city and an increased pickup frequencies in residential areas, as these truly, again, fall under city responsibility. And that's all I had to say today. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate it. Evan Cruz, you're next. Oh, wait. Evan? Sorry, you're on the Sunshine Park one, and we have that coming up. So I'll call you when we get to that one, okay? Anybody else want to speak that's not signed up on the audience participation? Okay, we're going to move to number 6, consent agenda. We have 4 items: January 12th, 2026 meeting minutes, January 26th, 2026 meeting minutes, January 29th, 2026 special meeting minutes, and the OLCC new outlet on the Garden Valley Boulevard. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We're on number 7, resolution, the legal fees related to Oregon Government Ethics Commission.
Good evening. At the November 10th, 2025 meeting, Council discussed considering a policy for reimbursing legal fees related to Oregon Government Ethics Commission, OGEC ethics complaints that are ultimately dismissed. At the January 26th meeting, staff presented a draft policy for Council consideration. By consensus, Council tabled the matter to allow councilors additional time to review the draft and propose edits. The issue before Council is whether to include the proposed edits and adopt a resolution adopting the policy. So as I said at the November 10th, 2025 meeting, the Council and the Mayor directed staff to develop and present a formal OGEC legal reimbursement policy for Council consideration. The direction included a requirement that reimbursements over $5,000 receive Council approval. At the January 26, 2026 meeting, Council by consensus tabled further discussion to allow councilors time to make edits to the draft policy. The subject of the proposed policy is reimbursement of personal legal fees incurred by individuals defending ethics complaints when the complaint is ultimately dismissed. Adopting a policy would provide consistency, ensure compliance with state law, and clear administrative procedures. Under Oregon government ethics law, public officials must initially defend OGEC complaints individually. Without approval of the governing body, the city cannot legally reimburse the costs. The original proposed policy applied uniformly to all employees, commissioners, councilors, and the mayor, allows reimbursement only after the OGEC issues an order of dismissal confirming the complaint was unfounded, authorizes the city manager to reimburse the first $5,000 or any amount up to $5,000 in documented legal fees, requires city council approval for any reimbursement beyond the initial $5,000, establishes uniform documentation and eligibility standards, ensures compliance with state statute by prohibiting personal financial benefit without formal governing body approval, prevents an official from participating in approval of their own reimbursement request. So the edits requested from councilors, Councilor Weiss had requested that all reimbursement requests be brought before the city council for consideration. Councilor Porter has suggested the following changes. In section 1 under purpose, add individuals who are before city employees, members of the board. Change complaints filed with the OGEC Commission to complaints filed by and accepted by. Section 4, add language stating unless such activity is initiated by or approved by the city administration or city council, following reference to political activity. In section 6, for eligibility for reimbursement, add language requiring the individual seeking reimbursement to notify the city council within 15 days of being notified of the pending OGEC action and their intent to seek reimbursement. Add language limiting reimbursement to customary hourly legal rates. And in section 7, remove section 7.1 and require all reimbursement requests and approvals to be considered by the council. Section 8, clarify that costs unrelated to defending the ethics complaint, such as transportation costs and time off work, are not eligible for reimbursement. In section 10, revise to reflect that all reimbursement requests are subject to city council consideration. With that, staff has some questions or comments on the proposed changes. One main decision point is whether there is a threshold under which the city manager can approve a reimbursement. The original council direction set the amount at $5,000. If council wants to approve every request, what will the basis for approval be beyond the OGEC dismissal? Will the reimbursements be placed on the consent agenda, since they already meet the criteria identified in the policy? And clarification needed regarding whether the requested language is already encompassed within the phrase other formal city authorization or whether additional wording is necessary. In section 6, for eligibility for reimbursement, So requiring notification within 15 days, the initial period of OGEC's process is confidential. So this initial period is set in statute at 60 days. The expectation that someone would make this process public is unfair. So 15 days in, the individual does not know what their expenses may be, if there will be a dismissal, and whether or not they will seek reimbursement. They don't know if it will be dismissed at step 1 or be carried forward to another step prior to dismissal. It is supposed to be confidential at this point and not too much, and too much is unknown. And who establishes prevailing local or regional legal market rates? So with that, the financial considerations or costs will vary depending on future OGEC complaints. And for timing considerations, the city manager does have one request for reimbursement pending. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Ellen?
Thank you, Mayor. Sounds like most of the questions that you brought forward, and thank you very much for that summary. That was great. Are probably directed my way because the questions that you raised, I think, are primarily associated with my comments. Is that correct?
You and Zach had one comment, and
I had
yes, they were the same.
Yeah. So these aren't questions, and so I'm looking to Jim, but I'm happy to address your questions, but I don't know if that counts as a question under this part of the process.
Why don't we see if anybody has questions, and then we can figure out where to go from there.
Okay.
Since ORS 244.260, this is kind of for Jim, mandates confidentiality during the 68-day preliminary review, does this city policy regarding the 15 days force the official to violate state law to receive city support?
Am I on now? So that's under 4C under that statute, and it really has to do with OGEC and OGEC staff that the law requires that it remain confidential from OGEC. There isn't anything in here that says that the person that made the complaint or somebody else can't make a comment on it. It just has to do with OGEC commission members and staff, and that they can't comment on it. And so that's that section. So I guess my answer is no. I don't think there's anything in the statute that would prevent it.
Okay. If the city forces an employee or an official to disclose an investigation that is still in the confidential phase, does the city assume any liability for potential harm if the OGEC ultimately finds no cause in the complaint?
As an attorney, I would say there's always some potential claim. So yeah, there's potentially some kind of anybody can file suit against the city. So there's some potential there. The statute does say it's a confidential process. So somebody could bring something. I'm not going to speak to whether that would be successful or not, but.
For city employees, would mandatory disclosure requirement violate existing personnel policies, collective bargaining agreements, or privacy rights under Oregon labor law?
I'm going to have to get John up here to answer that, if he knows.
Be potentially depending on the details of the situation. So without a specific scenario, I don't know if there's a way to answer that.
I think I'm good for now.
I know that it sounds like some of Andrea's questions are arising because of some of the comments that I had made on potential edits to this resolution. So my response to some of Andrea's questions are, number one, if this is a matter that someone thinks is very sensitive and should be confidential because they don't want to disclose some of this information, they're not compelled to come in and request reimbursement. If you want to keep this stuff confidential, and if it means a lot to you to keep it confidential, you can keep it confidential. My point here on trying to open up some transparency to have these things come forward in council, regardless whether it's during the confidential preliminary period or during the second phase of a OGEC investigation that is not confidential, is that if we're going to use public funds to reimburse folks on especially ethics questions, we need to open the window and daylight this for transparency's sake. But there's nothing that requires a person to come in and request reimbursement if it's information that they don't want to be made public. But if you're asking for the public to reimburse you for that, the public deserves a right to know what they're reimbursing for. That is the basis of my comments. So, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I guess my question also is, if we make people disclose this and it not remain confidential, how do you prevent people from being like favoritism or retaliatory in our decision on whether or not that person should be reimbursed for their, before we even know if it's going to be dismissed? You're forcing somebody to come up if they so choose, because not everybody can afford attorney fees. You're forcing them to come and disclose, and then we make a decision. But what prevents anybody here from, well, I like that person, so I'm going to go ahead and say yes, but oh, I don't like that person. So there's no consistency, which makes it very unfair. So my question is, how do you make it fair and non-retaliatory?
So I don't have an answer for that, because I think the whole system is set up to be retaliatory. And so because there doesn't have to be, there's as the mayor has mentioned, there are no consequences for filing a claim that has no backing, and somebody can go through that process. If the person filing the claim notifies the newspaper writes an article, people are more or less convicted in the press, and then 60 days or longer later, it's dismissed. Opinions are already formed, and so the question is, if there's a chance somebody can keep that confidential during that process, should we honor that confidentiality or not? I guess that's the question. So we've seen a couple of cases, multiple articles written, things dismissed, and we keep seeing it play out in the newspaper anyway, even though it's been dismissed.
And another question is, does it force them to, like, self-incrimination? Like, you're bringing this up, and people may also, because you're bringing it up, they may assume that you're guilty before you are found not guilty of this, and it's dismissed. So how is this protecting the person who's being investigated?
They're not having to, they just have to, I mean, if what council wants to do is require somebody to do it within 15 days, they just have to notify They don't have to make a comment or a statement on it, so I don't think that's an issue.
And thank you, Jim. That was my intent behind that 15 days, is just to provide council with notice that you're going to be asking for, that you plan to be seeking reimbursement. And I've heard here just in the last couple of minutes the term force used several times. There's no one forcing anybody to come ask for reimbursement. But if you want reimbursement, then it just needs to be transparent, because we're going to use public funds to reimburse you. That's all. Is it if you're asking the public to reimburse you, they should have they kind of have a right to know what they're reimbursing.
This is all commentary. We have to just stick to asking questions, and if we're ready to talk about what we want to do, then somebody needs to make a motion, and then we can have a conversation.
And thank you for that, Jim. I asked Larry, the mayor, if I could respond to some of Andrea's questions. He said yes, and so that was. I asked for permission before I provided that commentary. Thank you.
So I guess I'm looking for some clarity in my own confusion here. The way Andrea has asked the questions makes it seem like there's an opportunity for it to sound to be entirely private, which at some point through Oregon Government and Ethics Commission, this becomes public no matter what, right? If it moves forward and it moves on to the next portion, it becomes, if they deem it worthy of an investigation, then it becomes public, correct?
I think it becomes public no matter what at the end of the preliminary phase.
At the end of the preliminary?
So you may be told.
Well, you're saying that she keeps saying, can I have no?
At the end of the preliminary phase, I think you're told dismissed, or it's going to the investigation stage next. So one of those two will be made public.
Okay, so it does become public.
Yeah.
So you're asking this person before it's even been decided to bring it forward. So it's confidential until they come to the last.
Can I clarify that? This is based on my comment. Can I clarify that before we get down the rabbit hole?
I want to make sure we're doing questions though. So what are you going to respond, answer the question?
Yes, because I was hoping to respond to that question, because that wasn't the intent behind the comment. The intent behind the comment was that they just provide notice that they're going to be asking for reimbursement. It's during the reimbursement request, which would come after the dismissal, and it would be after the items or the conclusion would be made public, that they would actually disclose that. But prior to, they would just give notice. That notice does not require a full summary of what the conclusions might be. The conclusions, when you ask for the reimbursement, would come after the dismissal in this case.
So I guess my question would be then, if you get notified by Ethics Commission, you have a choice. You either can just respond or get an attorney. So if you just respond, you save yourself some money, and you won't know what happened until the 30 days or 60 days are up, or maybe sooner. So you don't have any idea that you're going to be asking for any reimbursement, because you just responded on paper. 30, 40 days later, they tell you that, oh, by the way, we're going to the investigation stage. Now you go, okay, so now I better get an attorney, or it's coming to dismissal. So you don't even know in 15 days if you're going to owe any money, if you're going to get an attorney. So that's what I'm kind of curious in terms of, why would we say that versus at the end of when you know, which would be 60 days for sure, and then you could say, okay, I want to be reimbursed if I'm going to have a pay-in for attorney. So I guess that's the question I'd have, is why lock it in and say you got 15 days to let us know if you don't even know yourself?
Can I respond to that too? Okay, thank you. I think giving the notice, a 15-day notice after being put on notice that you potentially could be part of an investigation, you can give the city notice that you may be asking for reimbursement. You're not having to lock it in, because at that point, if they dismiss it before they take it any farther, then yeah, wouldn't need reimbursement. But it at least gives the city administration and the city council the opportunity at that point to kind of keep an eye on it to see where it's going. It doesn't mean that you have to ask for reimbursement if it ultimately ends up that you don't need any reimbursement for funds not spent. But you're just giving notice that, hey, this is going on. And I, you know, if I end up having to spend money to defend myself, I'm going to be asking for reimbursement. That's all. You're not locking anything in. You're just giving council and the administration a heads up.
So I guess the question is, what happens if you find out 30 days later? You're out of luck. You find out 30 days later at that point. So do you get reimbursed because you didn't do it within 15 days? And you didn't even know. And all of a sudden you realize, ooh, I'm going to get me an attorney 30 days later. Now you're too late. You didn't even tell the council.
But
And you didn't even know. You thought, well, I just answered the questions they asked me, so I did that. So now the question would be, what happens to that individual if they figure out 30 days later that, oh, yeah, I guess I better get me an attorney, and now you're stuck because you're 15 days late.
you know, I think if anyone on the council, if anyone on in the admin, if anyone on a commission gets notice from OGEC that they're going to take a look, I would really encourage folks to just give notice to the city saying, hey, they've put me on notice that they're going to be potentially doing an investigation. I'm you know, herewith putting the city on notice that I may ask for reimbursement. It's an easy step. It's an easy step. It doesn't lock you into anything. It just opens the door for the transparency. That's all.
So you're just asking for a request of the potential, the fact that there might be a potential. You're not looking for a public statement in that. You're not looking for any agenda items. You're looking for a notice that there has been some sort of action filed against them. Is there any current protocol that's put in with the, like, as far as from the city's administration side to inform any members if there's a complaint with OGEC?
I honestly don't know what you're asking. Any members of what?
Any members of the council, of the commissions that they're a part of, is there anything in regards to it? Because
There's nothing in place. This is all brand new.
okay, I'm just making sure that there's not currently one that I'm unaware of.
No, and again, that first phase is confidential. So even if somebody tells me, hey, this has been filed against me, I wouldn't feel right notifying
Absolutely.
other people that.
I'm speaking.
That's where the rub is. We keep saying it'll be more transparent, but that would mean that the public, we were telling the public, not telling.
Forgive me for not being clear. I know we're talking about the 15 days currently. My question was in regards to
Sure.
in general. That was actually for the entire.
Yeah, no, there's no policies in place. This is actually brand new legislation that is just come down the pike, and these are, I think, the first year that this has been happening, and so, no, and again.
Okay. Thank you.
So how does that process work? If somebody files a complaint, does the Ethics Commission just call the individual that the complaint was filed on and says, oh, by the way, I received some information against you? Or do they call the city? Do they call anybody else? They don't call anybody else?
Go ahead.
They just contact the person
Within 2 days.
within 2 days.
And do they tell them you have paperwork to fill out, or we'll call you when we're ready? Do you know how that works?
They say that there's a potential that there's a complaint and they're going to investigate it.
And then what is the timeline on that complaint? That's where the 60 days comes in?
Yeah, that's the 60 days.
Okay. But you said up to? So at 60 days, they have to make a determining factor of what they're going to do?
Correct. That's my understanding.
There's a section of beyond 61 days, if it's somebody that's seeking election, there's additional language in the statute.
Gotcha. So they just notify you within 2 days, and then it could be between 2 and 60 days as to if you even know if you need a lawyer?
My understanding is that 60 days is when they're supposed to, within 60 days, they're supposed to do that preliminary hearing where they bring information back to the commission. That's an executive session. because everything's still confidential, and there's a recommendation from staff, the OGEC staff, on whether or not to move to the next step, and the commission takes action. And that all happens in executive session, not open to the public. And so then once that decision is made, if they're going to the next step, or if it's dismissed, or it's a letter of education, or whatever they decide at that step, that then becomes public after that point.
So, and then if that's considered, so if that's phase 1, is there a timeline on the phase 2 portion?
You have the statute. There is.
For phase
Yes,
2.
I believe so. Yeah. I didn't.
Yeah, it's 180 days.
180 days. Okay.
So, in reading through the ORS and the summary that the staff put together, it sounds like OGEC only reimburses if a case is dismissed after the investigatory period, but not after the preliminary period, if I'm understanding that correctly.
It's if it goes to a contested case trial.
Which is after the investigatory period. So the city's proposal here then is offering reimbursement for 2 steps prior to what OGEC would reimburse for. So we're talking about reimbursing for the preliminary period, and then potentially for the investigatory period, and then OGEC only reimburses for the contested case period, which would occur after an investigatory conclusion had been made. Is that correct, Jim?
It's correct, but you have to understand that when OGEC is paying those fees, that's coming from OGEC is paying those fees, and I think that's based on the idea that OGEC is taking responsibility for continuing forward with something that they shouldn't have been continuing forward with, and
Right.
so that's kind of why that decision marker lies where it does.
Okay. So, but just to be clear then.
But you're correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So we're looking at potentially providing reimbursement for 2 steps beyond what OGEC would provide reimbursement for. And so, and honestly, I mean, all I'm asking for is some transparency here, because it's the public deserves that.
All I'm asking for is somebody to make a motion so you guys can all start talking about what you want to talk about instead of, yeah.
I think we got a bunch of questions yet before we get there. I want to ask that question, though, in terms of if you get a phone call from the Ethics Commission says we're investigating you, and you go, okay, well, let me know what the results are. You're going to wait 60 days, and then at that point, you'll make a decision. And at that point, you go call an attorney if it's going to go to the investigation stage. And if it's not, you didn't waste any money. You didn't hire an attorney, you didn't waste any money. So locking in on 15 days, when you wait to 60 days just to hear the results, especially if you think you're right, why would you pay for an attorney? You would just wait 60 days, hear the results, you're done. So you're not even asked for reimbursement, but you're past your 15 days. So that's what I'm thinking. It makes more sense if you're going to lock something in and say, hey, we need to know, then everybody knows supposedly within those 60 days. You'll know by then. But I know for me, I would say, okay, go ahead and investigate and let me know. And if they say, hey, we're going to number 2, then okay, I guess I need an attorney. But now I'm past my 15 days. So I think if we lock it in on 15 days, it seems like that you would be, according to this, if I'm reading it right, it would say you can't ask for reimbursement.
Question?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I don't think you're locking anything in by providing notice. But I think the one reimbursement that we've provided so far was just reimbursement for the preliminary period. It never went to the investigatory period. Is that correct, Jim? So okay, so there
Yes.
so there you go. So Larry, that's an answer to your question. So the one case that we have reimbursed for never made it past the first preliminary period, but an attorney was retained and reimbursement was made. And so, you know, the edits to this only would just ask that, hey, if you've been called in and you think you might want to ask for reimbursement, just give us notice. It doesn't lock you into anything. If you don't end up retaining a attorney, you don't need to, ask for the reimbursement. But in that case, if you do retain an attorney, then you can ask for reimbursement. It's just a simple notice. And the one reimbursement that we have provided was only just for the preliminary period where you would assume that you wouldn't have an attorney.
See, some of the questions that we have here, though, is more than just the 15 days. It's like it needs to come to council for approval, not only the investigation stage, but the whole thing. Somewhere in here I read it said it has to come with everything. And so if staff has the criteria, then what is our criteria going to be? You missed your 15 days? What's our criteria then? Because I think Zach, didn't yours say that it had to be all of it?
No.
Didn't yours say everything comes?
When you say everything, what do you mean?
Preliminary investigation, doesn't matter, anything comes to council for approval. I think it was
what I requested? I think it needs to come before council. As to how that's specified, I'm fairly indifferent to it, to be honest. Like, I am okay with it being along the consent agenda so long as the correct information is provided to us and the public. I'm perfectly content with it coming to the consent agenda if there are parameters around that. I do think that there is a potential for some issues if we are picking and choosing apart which ones are and are not are going to be approved. So I think some parameters around it are good, but I do think it needs to come before us with the consent agenda, and I do think it needs to come with a full statement from OGEC as to what their final conclusion was. That's what you were asking me, right?
somewhere. I think I read that your hope was to have both come to council, preliminary investigation.
No, I did not say that.
Okay, so that would be that would mean we're not talking about preliminary, we're only talking about investigation part.
I am talking about when reimbursement is requested,
Yeah.
that there is clarity as to why.
Preliminary or investigation or both?
If you're requesting for reimbursement, then
Both?
it would have either or.
So it is preliminary then?
If somebody's requesting for reimbursement, then there needs to
Okay,
be.
that's
some
what I thought I read.
provided.
So you're saying you want people to come, you want council approval for preliminary and investigation?
Are we talking? I guess I'm confused then as to how this is written, because to me this wasn't a matter of providing reimbursement twice. This was a matter of reimbursement once at the end of everything. Correct?
Staff put on there the first 5,000 would be approved by city manager, doesn't come to council. So that was, I was asking the question, you wanted that to come to council. Now, if you don't want that one, then that's would be the same as what staff vote, and you'd be asking for, do you want it just to come for investigation? But if you want both of them, then you bypass that first stage with city manager for the 5,000.
I think all of any reimbursement with public funds needs to
So
come
you're
before
saying
us to the
both?
public. Yes, I guess. Yeah.
Can I clarify?
Uh-huh.
Okay, since most of these comments come from me, and thank you, Zach, for that. The way that I was anticipating this based on my comments is that within the first 15, after a person gets notified that they're going to be under review by OGEC, within 15 days, they just notify the city saying, hey, I've got a call, I may be looking for reimbursement if I need to hire an attorney. And if you look at my language here, which is chicken scratch in the margins, because I didn't have Word on my iPad, otherwise it would have been cleaner and I would have put better language in here. But it says the individual seeking potential reimbursement notifies the city council within 15 days of being notified of pending OGEC action, and that individual will likely be seeking reimbursement. Doesn't lock you into anything. It's just that if you end up hiring an attorney, then it opens the door for you to ask for reimbursement. And then after the end of that first review period by OGEC, if they decide to dismiss and you hired an attorney, then you provide city administration with a summary and the conclusions by OGEC so that they can add it to, and I'm okay with the consent agenda at that point too, for council to approve it. And so that way, at least we're just providing that window of transparency so that the public can see what we're reimbursing and why. And then there's that second phase that takes it into the investigatory period. And if after that investigatory period, OGEC decides to dismiss the claim at that point, then they come back a second time and ask for additional reimbursement. But that first notice within the first 15 days provides the notice for both of those phases. It's just a notice. That's all it is. It's just saying, hey,
So that's there is no reimbursement after one phase and reimbursement after second phase. This is reimbursement upon dismissal.
And that's fine. But there's two phases in the process, and so that's all I was trying to point out, is that there's two phases in the process. If they dismiss it after the first phase, then they bring it forward and it can come within the consent agenda. If they dismiss it after the second phase, then okay, you ask for one reimbursement after phase 2, which is the investigatory period. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's not what I understood you to say. We're back to comments though.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question as well. So if somebody comes to council to disclose that they may have to request for a reimbursement, and now the public knows that somebody's being investigated, can they find out about that investigation? Because now it's still going to be confidential.
So if there's as the statute states, if somebody's like, oh, I heard Joe Blow is getting investigated, and they call OGEC, OGEC will say yes or no that there is a claim against that person, and that is the only information they will release during that specific time. But you would have to already know to ask that question.
See, I want to know what happens though if you don't do it within 15 days. Because I can see very easily somebody calling and saying, okay, go investigate, let me know when you're done. And so 60 days later, they tell me it's dismissed. Or they tell me I'm going to be investigated to the next phase. I'm past my 15 days. What happens?
Would you feel more comfortable with a 30-day notice?
I'd be more comfortable 60-day notice or earlier, as soon as I know.
That's what the 15 days was trying to be, was earlier, as soon as you know. And it's and if we make people aware of this, I mean, it's a pretty easy process to just say, hey, Nikki, I got a call from MOGAC. I'm providing you notice that I'm under potential investigation, and would you please, log this because I may ask for reimbursement. That's all it is.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
And all I'm asking for is what happens if you don't in 15 days. So just what happens? Are you out?
Yeah. I think
you're out because you waited to find out at the end of 60 days. That's what you're saying. We're going to be out.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying, because I believe that if you're going to ask for public funds, you've got to provide the notice that, hey, I'm going to be asking the public to reimburse me for these expenditures. The public has, it's their money. The public has a right to know how we're going to spend their money. That's all it is.
So how is the public finding out?
It will at least their representatives are going to find out.
What representatives?
The people sitting on this bench.
Oh, then we advertise?
No, we don't advertise. Nikki can let us know, hey, by the way, there's a potential claim coming up, and this person has provided notice. It's really not that onerous. But you've got to file notice with an agency before you can sue them.
But you have 6 months to do that.
In some cases.
Or for tort notice, it's 6 months.
Yeah. In others, it's far briefer, far more brief. So in regulatory cases, et cetera.
Yeah, but that's not the rules the city deals with.
No, but still, notice is not. I don't think providing notice is terribly onerous when you're asking for the public to reimburse you for money. I think it's appropriate. If everybody else disagrees, I mean, I'm just trying to open up this window of transparency because I think the public deserves it.
And that's my question. The public still isn't finding out at that point. Am I correct about that?
The claims in a potential complaint for the first 60 days are going to be confidential. And so the public will not know what the issues are until after that preliminary period. But at least we have noticed that a claim might be pending. Without specifics.
So I don't think that was my question. We keep saying that public will know if that notice, and my understanding is not that is not actually notifying the public. It's notifying counselors is what your request in the policy is, correct? Which makes a public record also, but
correct. That's all this
which is discoverable.
This one specific edit, that's all it was asking for, was just provide notice that you're going to be asking for reimbursement. And counsel won't have the opportunity to dig in and find out the substance of the claim or what allegations of the claim are, but at least it gives counsel and the public through the counsel a heads up that someone may be asking for money for reimbursement.
Whoa.
That's all.
So now counselors are going to be allowed to tell the public?
No, because we won't know. We won't know what the claims are. But it just provides the public with notice that someone might be asking for reimbursement.
It provides counsel with notice. So to me, the public is the public. I just want to be really clear that we're not expecting that we're going to notify the public.
You're not going to send out a public announcement. That's correct. It'll come up.
I'm not listening. Is that what you said?
No, I said you're not going to provide the public with a public announcement.
Gotcha.
It's just going to be an agenda item to say, hey, someone is this person's going to be potentially or I mean that's.
No, we need to clarify so everybody knows what they're voting on if they choose to vote one way or another. So now this notice at 14 days is now an agenda item?
I don't know.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily need to be an agenda item. I just think people need to provide notice before they come in and ask for reimbursement.
Okay, you've been hand up for a while. You're up, Zach.
You had mentioned in your notes you wrote 15, and then earlier a little bit ago you had asked Ellen, like you commented that it could be 30 days. Are you? I guess just for clarity's sake, it sounds like you're pretty flexible on that to a degree as far as the amount of notice. You just want notice of some sort. So would it be an issue to be that at 60 days prior to or at the end of the determination?
I think at the end of that preliminary period is probably a little bit tardy because at that point we're not hearing about it until someone is asking for reimbursement after the fact. I think 15 days is very reasonable. I'm happy to be flexible. I think 30 days is a long time. I would be I would think most people could notify prior to 30 days, but I think 60 days, at 60 days, that's when you kind of get the preliminary answer. I think that's a little bit late.
Is there a world where it could be written to have two different ones, one for somebody that's looking for reimbursement for the preliminary phase? Because I kind of agree with Larry when he was talking about, he would just write it out and see before even looking for legal counsel. But if somebody is happening to look for legal counsel within that preliminary phase, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, is that a possibility to have it written up with two different ways to do that? I know that's kind of an ambiguous question.
And
how would we know?
How would the individual that is looking for legal counsel during the preliminary phase would need to give notice of some sort in that phase?
And then the people that don't want to give the notice and wait till the end?
Can I address Zach's? Can I address his question first?
I'm just.
So Zach, to your question, I think that there is. I mean, if you want to forego getting reimbursed for the preliminary phase, don't provide notice. If you find out after the preliminary phase and before the investigatory phase, maybe we could provide notice within 15 days of that person knowing that the OGEC is going to take it to the second phase, and then at that point you provide notice within 15 days of being notified of that. I think that's entirely doable.
So we need a motion. We were having a big discussion about this, and we still don't have a motion.
I want to ask a few more questions. Let me remember what they were now. Oh, policy versus operation. We sit up here with policy. We put in the rules. So we say, here's the expectations. You will have a dismissal order. You will have such and such, such and such, and such and such to qualify. So the one that carries that out in operations is the city manager. So are we crossing the line? If we set the policy, we set the expectations, and then we say, now bring it to council and we'll vote on it, versus saying, this is the policy, city manager, you're the operations, you deal with it. Have we crossed the line?
That's a pretty loaded question, and I don't know that does cross the line. There's other things that come on consent that are things that the city manager is making decisions on. If council is going to hear these and there's not base criteria, and that would feel potentially like more of a problem. But if there's base criteria and it comes on consent, I don't see a big problem with that.
Okay. The other one, if it comes to council for a vote, what would be our criteria? The same one that we have for the preliminary, or do we have different criteria?
I don't know.
So when would we figure that out? Prior to motion or after motion?
There's already criteria, and the criteria is listed here. And I don't think there was anything changed with the eligibility for reimbursement other than the request for within 15 days putting the city on notice that you may be seeking reimbursement.
And the attorney fees.
What?
And setting some sort of.
Oh, the reasonable and customary attorney fees, and trying to figure out what that means. And I'm not sure how to set that, but anyway.
So we would need to iron out then what the criteria is if we're going to have the decision made here, correct? Because we already have criteria that we know that we want to put forth for the city manager. If it comes here, then we got to have either the exact same criteria, or are we adding other stuff in it?
So we need a motion. Somebody needs to make a motion. And if there's further things that, I think we need to make a motion so that, you can still ask questions after a motion. It's not like there's not question, you can't, we're just, the process of these meetings is we're supposed to ask questions and not leading questions, just like literal questions. I know it makes it complicated because Councilmember Porter made some of these suggestions, and it gets confusing because then she needs to explain what she meant by what she's doing, so we get a little confused. But it causes all of these things to we spin off the rails. Mm-hmm. And what we need to do is we need to ask all our questions that are actual questions, and then we need a motion. And if it gets seconded, then we can discuss it. If that discussion leads to more questions, we can ask more questions, but we have a motion on the table.
Okay.
I got a question for you then. How does that affect the 2-round thing? Because you only have 2 rounds. And so you don't have the opportunity after the motion's made to debate with somebody.
if you have questions, you can ask questions after. That's different than debating with somebody.
But if you only have 2 times to talk, if you only have, we say, okay, motion, discussion time, here you go. Here's your first round, here's the second round. You don't have a third one and a fourth one to sit there and respond to people. You're done. So that's why I'm just trying to figure out, is this the proper time to be able to talk about, well, what's the question, what happens at the situation, so we can at least talk it? Because once that motion is made and those 2 rounds begin, that's all you got. And if you start wanting to ask questions and try to respond to somebody else's stuff, you got to do it within your 2 times.
I don't have a good answer for you. I'm just following the rules of meetings that I'm supposed to be doing as part of my job. So that's part of the process. That's how we're supposed to do it.
Can I just real quick try to encapsulate this, and then I'm happy to make a motion, and people can not vote for the motion, but if that's what gets us past this procedural deal. But if I can just encapsulate this to try to eliminate further confusion, would that be okay?
I don't know what encapsulating means, but you can try to make a motion based on what you want this to be.
Let me see if he's got a question first, though.
So when I'm looking at this, so there is a bit of a statement that leads to a question, just preemptive, just warn everybody. When I'm looking at this, there is quite a spread of different ideas that we're talking about adding to this, where we're having an issue with what, as far as the clarity of what we've presented and what the administration brought to us. There's some things that want to change. Is it possible to go through this list like we did with the parking stuff and send it back to have this rewritten up and brought back to us again? Because I think to make a motion on the options available, it's either all of it or the original. And that's where it's getting hard for us to make a motion, I think, because there's parts of this that I agree with, and there's parts of it that I don't agree with, and I would like to see change prior. So to make a motion on that, it would be hard to articulate that in any way to specify which ones we do and do not want. Would it be possible for us to go through this like we did with those parking ones and go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no as a council, and then have it come back to us again for the vote?
One of the things I was trying to debate with myself in terms of the very beginning, do we want to make clear, and that is, what is attachment 1, what is attachment 2, what is attachment 3, and what is attachment 4? And I think that would answer what you're asking for, is the differences that are in those 4 attachments. So how about if I do that real quick, and if I bore you, sorry about that. Attachment 1 is the one that staff put together. So that's the one that has the 5,000 approval by city manager, and then after that it comes to council. So now if you look at attachment 2, if you...
Can I ask real quick though? I thought 1 was the original that doesn't come to council.
Number 1 is the one that staff put together, correct?
That's staff put together, but it does not come to council. It would just be approved by the city manager.
No. Anything over 5,000 goes
But the
to
under
council.
5,000 would
Yep.
just go to the city manager, and that would not come to council.
Correct. Under 5,000
made-
goes to city manager, over 5,000 comes here.
Okay,
That's the original one.
that's the original one. So under 5,000 does not come here, over does.
Over does, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's attachment 1. Now, attachment 2, the difference is they've added 2 eligibility reimbursements, which is the 15 days, and the hourly rate is on there. And if I remember right, those are the 2 differences from attachment 1 and attachment 2. 15 days and the hourly rate. If you look at attachment 3, that's a real handy report on what is actually the rules for ORS 244.26 there. So you can kind of read what is the Ethics Commission's rules. So it's not anything attached to our 1 or 2. And then when you look to attachment 4, these are the comments that Ellen put on the side of them, of the things to add for additional wording. And let's see, I think most of it had to do with like individuals, on the very first one, individuals who are city employees and accepted by, and I'm trying to remember if anything stood out. She has the 15 days, but that's on number 2. So really, it's attachment 1 and 2 are the two that we're looking at. 2 has the 15 days and hourly rate, and then 1 is the original one, 5,000.
So,
the council after that.
A question for staff, because I've from when I read this, you are saying it's just those 2 things. To me, I felt like all of the adjustments were made for attachment 2. All of the requested attachments were added into that. Is that right? So it's not just those 2. It's actually all of the requests on the second.
2 are the same, except for 2 has eligibility requirements 6 and 7 added to it.
It added everything that was in Counselor Porter's comments.
And the one that I requested, correct? Which
Well,
was, I guess they're kind of one and the same.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So attachment 1 is the original. Attachment 2 is everything added to it.
Which is 2 things.
No.
Because 1 and 2 are exactly the same except for 6 and 7 on eligibility requirements and number 7.1 funding. Otherwise, they're the exact same report. If you look at them, exact same wording.
Am I?
There's a few words added into other sections that she suggested that are on the
That are in
attachment
number
2.
What's that?
So all of the edits requested by Counselor Porter are included in attachment 2. So there's things added like transportation costs and things like that being excluded. Under section 8, and you went over the ones adding, and then we had a question about city authorization under official duties.
At it, 1 and 2 are the exact same wording, except for those 3 that I circled. Otherwise, they do match. At least mine matches.
Are you talking about the resolution?
What do you call it? Yeah, resolution, attachment 1 and 2. Resolution.
So the exhibit A's that have the actual policy have changes in them.
Which one are you talking about?
Attachment 2,
She's comparing this one, Resolution A, Attachment 1,
To this one.
to this one.
Yeah, they're the
which is
same thing.
Attachment 2. And,
Yeah.
and I think they embedded,
These 3.
yeah, but they embedded some language in here to modify based on what the edits were.
They're all the same.
it is mostly the same, but there are some additional words that have been inserted.
From my understanding, is all the parts that are labeled underneath edits requested by counselors were added into
Yes.
number 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Jennifer.
So it's section 1 has a change, section 4.1 has a change, section 6 has a change, section 7 has a change, section 8, and section 10. That's just what I was talking about when I was asking you if it's possible to go through all of these and we can, as a council, send it back to have them make the modifications, or at least then we can have a consensus amongst us to make the motion.
Okay, so tell me again, you wanted to talk about what numbers are you talking about?
So I think, Mayor, I think if you look on these edits requested by counselors, that you can look, and we can just kind of go through, I think what Zach is asking for is we can just kind of go through these line items, section 1, section 4.1, section 6, where I requested some mostly relatively minor edits, and we can just go through those one at a time, and then it provides staff the opportunity to just kind of, okay, take this out, leave that in. Is that right, Zach?
That was my idea for being able to move through this.
Yeah, so look at this page right here.
Then why is mine different?
Well, go backwards. So, I think it's right here. Excuse me. So just look at this right here, and we can go through this. These are the edits that were requested. We can go through section 1, purpose, section 4.1, and these are the edits that were requested, and we can just go through those one by one and vote on them one by one.
You need to make sure you put your microphone on when you're talking to the mayors.
Yeah, I was coughing, so I was kind of torn between coughing and the microphone or talking, so I apologize.
Okay, so you're on the write-up, staff write-up, page 2, where it has added requests by counselors? That's the one you're talking about?
Yeah, those are the adjustments that were made to the policy from my understanding, correct? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you want to talk about each one, section 1 and then 4.16 and all the way through.
Yes. So
Everybody okay with that or not?
do we need to make a motion before we go through each one of those?
Why don't somebody make a motion that you're going to do it like this, and let's see how people vote.
I'll move that council reviews each section that's been requested to be modified and vote yay or nay on each one of those.
May I summarize for clarification that you are making a motion to review attachment 2, which is the... Are we going through the memo or resolution 2?
The requested edits.
And this is why I'm clarifying. Thank you. So my understanding is the motion, you are reviewing the edits as part of the memo, piece by piece at this time. Is that correct?
Correct. And just the verbiage under the heading edits requested by counselors.
Okay. I'm going to step away now because there is a motion on the table.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
And a second to go over the edit requests by counselors. Discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. And motion carries. Okay. So first one is section 1, the purpose. And so now we got to look at what one of the exhibits, attachment 1 or 2, doesn't matter, right?
Do you want me to go, or Jennifer to go through them?
Yeah.
You want to do it, Jennifer, or you want me to?
I'm happy to do it. Okay, so section 1 is purpose, and the added language would be individuals who are right before city employees, members of city boards. Would you like me to read the purpose again? No? Okay. So it's just adding some additional language in there.
Clarification, just to clarify that it's individuals and not necessarily an entity, that's all.
Thank you. Do you want me to go through all of them and then you guys discuss them, or did you want me to go one by one?
I think we need to go one by one, and if everybody's okay with it, nod your heads and actually nod your heads so we can see if you're good with it, so we can see if there's a consensus on each of them. So everyone, that has to do with that first one, adding individuals who are. Okay.
Wait a second before we do that. So we're going to add individuals who are before city employees. So we're going to find the one that says city employees and it says may reimburse legal fees incurred by city employees, members of city boards and commissions. And we want to say it's going to read, we're going to do individuals who are city employees. So we got encouraged by city employees. And so what's the difference with who are individuals of city employees? What are we doing?
Well, to repeat what I just mentioned was that it distinguishes, it limits the person that would get reimbursed to an individual, not necessarily an entity. So it just clarifies that it's an individual that will request reimbursement and not necessarily an entity. That's all it does.
So it currently says may reimburse legal fees incurred by city employees. That means?
Not a group of employees, not a group of commissioners, not a group of counselors, an individual. That's all it does.
But each claim is filed against an individual, so it's either way
To say the same
can
thing.
work. Yeah.
it just makes it clear. Or during every provision of, I'm sorry, I've done a boatload of rule writing. That's how I would do it.
They both say the same thing to me.
They don't, but it's a point. It's a point of contention that somebody could argue later, and so it just makes it a little bit clearer at the outset. I have had people challenge rules left and right, and the clearer you can make it when you draft it, the less likely someone is going to be able to challenge it. It's a very minor point, but it's just a point of clarification. That's all it is.
And if each of these points is going to be like this, I think we just need to go down the list, and people need to either nod, or if you want to have everybody raise their hands, say they agree with that change, then we can see hands. But I think the way we need to do this based on our motion is just go through it, and if you're in favor, raise your hand, and if you're not, keep your hand down, and that's how we'll figure out what council thinks of each of the changes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So we're on the one that says we're going to add individuals before the city employees. So make sure you're looking at the right sentence there. Raise your hand if that's what you want to put in there. Okay, we'll put individuals. The next one says change complaints filed by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission to complaints filed and accepted by them. Where are we on the normal one? Ethics complaints filed by the Oregon Government Commission. And now we're going to say to complaints filed and accepted by the commission. Just raise your hand. You want to put that in there or not? Okay, we'll put it in there. Official duties, number 4.1, stating, all right, where are we? 4.1, unless such activity is initiated by or approved by the city administration or city council, following reference to political activity. So this one says, actions related to political activity does not constitute official duties. This one says, unless such activity is initiated by or approved by the city administration or city council to allow political activity.
So I think you need to read it with the sentence above that says all things.
Yeah, I would like some clarity on that one for understanding's sake.
Yeah, me too, because I don't really want to be approving political activity.
Yeah. So it just puts a I'm sorry. Can I answer that?
So let me read it with that sentence, if you don't mind. First, let me find it. So right now it says actions taken by an individual in their capacity as a city employee, appointee, or elected official that are authorized by the city charter, Roseburg Municipal Code, job description, council rules, or other formal city authorization. So I think that city authorization maybe is what you're referring to, but then we add, so actions related to campaign activity, political activity, personal matters, or non-city business do not constitute official business. So that's where you're wanting to add after political activity, if I got that correctly.
Right.
Unless authorized by the city manager or the city administration or city council. I'd like to take city administration out of that. We don't authorize political activity.
And that works. And honestly, I apologize for this chicken scratch. I thought we had Word on the iPad. I would have done this a lot more professionally if I would have had Word on the
Totally
iPad.
Understood.
So
we only included it, so we made sure that we captured.
Yeah. And so what this is intended to do is rather than not being able to request reimbursement for items such as, political activity, personal matters, or non-city business, because they don't constitute official duties, if the city council authorizes that specific activity, because I know, when I was beating the halls of Salem trying to get that legislation passed, that was a political activity. And so all this additional language does is that if the city council authorizes that type of activity, then you can ask for reimbursement for those activities. Otherwise, it's going to be excluded from reimbursement. It just opens the door for a little bit more reimbursement if someone is doing authorized activities. That's all it does.
Okay, raise your hand if you want that one added in.
We need to clarify, is it that change with city administration taken out? The city manager asked to have city administration removed from that.
I would say that if Nikki believes that to be appropriate, I would totally agree with that.
Okay, so without city administration, just if approved by the city council, unless.
Let me ask a question. That one there was with all of our blessings to go do that. That example wasn't city administration and us. So in that case,
Well, to me, that's covered under the formal city authorization that's in the previous sentence. That was a discussion council had and supported Councilor Porter doing that lobbying. And I don't know if lobbying is a different word than political activity. Political activity is a little bit broader.
And just to be clear, anything that refers to city council means something that the council has voted on. So it automatically doesn't include individual councilors or a group of individual councilors telling you to go do something. It has to be consensus of the council as a body.
so you want yours left in or out? Yes, administration.
I don't want a city councilor doing political activity and saying the city administration, whoever that is, said it was okay. So my comfort level would take city administration out of that if it's for authorizing political activity.
Okay, are we all right with that? Okay, it passes. Number 6, eligibility reimbursement. Oh, this is the one that says within 15 days. That's more of a motion later, right? Because otherwise it locks this thing in.
What?
That one says 15 days. Isn't that one that we ought to wait on to see where we go in terms of a motion, 15 days or not? And just do the...
What are we doing then? I don't...
It's number 6, says add language to 15 days.
Right, but...
I guess you're...
That would be the time to talk about the duration. So I think, wouldn't we vote on what, if we want 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, that would be now?
Okay, if that's what we want to do. Do you see where we are?
What I understood the motion is going piece by piece to direct staff to make changes that's going to come back.
We are. And this one here is the one that says 15 days.
And we need direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll just
figure it
talk
out.
about the 15 days right now then?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go first. I really believe that if you get notified, and if you're like me, you're going to say, fine, go investigate me, and then let me know the results. So I'm not going to know the results till 60 days. And so I don't want to be locked into 15. I don't want to find out that later, oh, you should have told me back on 15 days. I won't know until 60 days. And I don't want to find out that I can't be reimbursed. So I believe that that thing should say within 60 days so that you have a chance to at least be able to notify somebody that, okay, I go to the next stage, and so now I will get an attorney because I'm not going to pay for one prior to that.
I would agree. I think we need to provide that time frame. 15 just seems too short.
Anybody else? Zach, you're up.
I agree with where Ellen's coming from as far as like it's not a huge thing to put that information out there, as far as the rule and the requirement goes, I think as long as it's within the 60 days. I think if you are moving on to the next one where you would be, I guess maybe 61 days then, because they need to notify you within 60 days. Right? Isn't that how the rule works with OGEC?
They have 60 days.
60 days. So within that 60 days, you need to notify whether or not you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Anybody else? Do we want to change it to 60 days? Ellen?
So if we wait until 60 days, then this council will not get notice of the request for reimbursement until that preliminary phase is done. And if it were dismissed, then we would be requested to provide reimbursement with no notice. I mean, it would basically be requesting reimbursement at the time that they're requesting reimbursement. So there's no advance notice at that point if it's dismissed after the first preliminary phase.
Zach, you're up.
So with the current rule structure of dismissal providing an approved reimbursement as it is, it wouldn't really change much though if we knew or we didn't know, correct? It would just give us the information. Like, as far as I'm aware, right? That's how it's set up for the rule.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. I'm okay with the 60 days then.
Okay, give me a show of the hands if you want 60 days put in there. Okay, 60 days. Next one is add language limiting reimbursement to customary hourly legal rates. How do you determine that?
Well, the thing that I was going to say about this one is you're not going to hire somebody in Roseburg to represent you on something like this, because the people that represent people on stuff like this are not in Roseburg. It's not that specialized. So when you're talking about customary rate, you have to talk about customary rate where. And I would imagine it's up north. It's mostly attorneys up in the, Salem and Portland area that do this type of work. And also, I don't know what customary means, but like average or, kind of, because depending on what kind of area of law people practice, there's different rates that are, the customary rate. So it's just kind of, it's tricky.
Agreed. It is tricky. I've got friends in Portland that charge like $800-900 an hour, and then, or you can find somebody maybe in Eugene that charges $250 or $300 an hour.
No.
You don't think so?
No. Attorneys in Roseburg, 400 almost. There's, yeah. It keeps going up.
I'm paying attorneys in Missoula right now $300 an hour, and they're good.
Yeah, I'm sure they.
And so
they are different
but
markets.
Even between $400 and $900 an hour. I mean, that's a pretty huge spread. And so, I mean, if the cities, if the taxpayers are going to pay for reimbursing, it's a big spread. So, I mean, if we're okay paying a high rate, then we'll leave it uncapped. I just, I'm just trying to be economical here.
I do feel like, for clarity's sake, that becomes a little cumbersome when it comes to the rule having a specified or even limitation of an hourly rate and a total, because we have a $5,000 cap before it moves on to the next portion anyways. I think the conversation would be better, instead of having two different versions of a cap, we'd be better off talking about if 5,000 is too much, then lowering that number versus having two different versions of that. I'm personally okay with the 5,000, and that's what the cap is currently. And then anything past that's going to have to come back to council for further approval as it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Shelley?
If I heard you correctly, a cap at 5,000, or before it doesn't come to council?
It still comes to council before that as a consent agenda from what? Yeah, that's what we're discussing currently, is that, so the cap that is written in there that we're working within is $5,000, correct? Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out, what we do with that first 5,000.
So the original motion
Yeah.
was that 5,000, anything over 5,000 came to council, which, as it was interpreted, meant that under 5,000 did not come to council, and that's how we proceeded with that direction. So that's where 5,000 ends. So if you want to call it a cap, it's probably not an actual cap, but there may be people that are like, I'll take 5,000 and not have to go through having everything blasted out into the public. It may actually encourage people not to ask for money above 5,000. But if everything comes to council, then you don't need that 5,000 in there at all. unless you want to say 5,000 under goes on consent and 5,000 and over gets discussed, but then you need criteria, because if you're discussing it and you're going to say no, what's your criteria?
Yeah.
Because the criteria in the policy is dismissed, is eligible for reimbursement.
I mean, I do think that that's a discussion that needs to be had then, as far as that portion of it when we talk about criteria. But to my understanding, was what we were talking about was 5,000 goes on the consent agenda with all of the information provided.
I was just going to add that the person that's doing the work with the attorney has the ability to control their involvement. And that's one of the choices I made. And that's why my amount was low, because they didn't come to the hearing. I didn't want to pay. So the responsible person should be responsible for not being overtly using the attorney for things that they don't need to be used for.
So you're saying with the 5,000, then that whoever it is knows that, hey, if you're going to hire somebody for 900, then you get up to 5,000 max. And
I'm not saying anything about how much the attorney costs an hour. I'm saying on how much you let them do. And I made conscious choices not to do so.
Yeah.
We're way off of the discussion of adding language limiting reimbursement to hourly legal rates.
Find the attorney. How do you know who to call that's supposed to be in Portland? How does that work?
There's lots of ways to do it, but you ask around, and then somebody gives you a name, and then you call them, and then if they can't help you, they give you the name of somebody else, or you look up on the internet people that represent in ethics complaints, and yeah.
Okay. Ellen?
So are we, in essence, then capping the preliminary review at $5,000? I mean, because
No.
we can hope that anyone that gets called in for potential investigation is frugal and doesn't use the attorney as much as they could. So they go through their $5,000 and then they want to come to council and get more than $5,000 because they wanted their attorney to come to the hearing with them. Then what
So I would suggest you just set a upper limit cap then
for the preliminary?
for everything. So we're trying to break things out into phases. I would suggest a cap. Well, I don't want to suggest that it's what we already proposed because that's what we were told to do. 5,000 is administration. Anything above comes to council. I think you will see people not wanting to go through that, and they're more than likely just going to ask for the 5, even if it's a bigger amount that they spent, because there is a level of having to go through it.
Yep.
And then you may want to consider, which is not in here, we're not paying anything over whatever that number is, 10, 12, whatever, so that you limit exposure. If that's the interest, is we want to make sure we're not getting this $25,000 legal bill.
Correct.
Then set an upper cap, and then it's the same for everybody.
Yep, I think I like that. So what if we cap the preliminary review at $5,000? Wait, let me finish before you shake your head. Let me finish. So what if we cap a preliminary review at $5,000 and not to exceed $10,000 if it goes through a total of $10,000 if it goes through the investigatory phase?
I don't know if you gain anything by trying to tie it to the phases.
Just to keep people from overspending during the preliminary phase. That's all it would gain.
And it's still not the section we're talking about.
I know, but
And
we're
then
there.
the other issue is whenever we put a cap on it, just as things get more expensive, then that's going to have to be
Adjusted.
brought back and adjusted. So if there's some way to That's why you said customary legal rate. You know, it's hard, like reasonable attorney fees. But if you put a hard 10 rate at it and then it turns out, you know.
So I started out with the reasonable and customary, and then someone else suggested a cap, and so I went to the cap, and then we're back to the
I know, but what we need to do is, we're in that eligibility for reimbursement, and then the next section is funding authority and approval. So if we can, I understand that they're tied together.
I was following up with a previous discussion, trying to find
Absolutely.
a solution.
It's two approaches to the same issue, I think, that you were trying to bring forward, which was some protections for the city. So I would suggest that we talk about if we want to add this language or not, and then we can move to the next section, which would be where you talk about reimbursement.
I actually like that idea of 5,000 for the preliminary phase and 5,000 max for the investigation, so your total is, you know, it does force somebody to use it wisely on each one.
And actually, I think my statement, Mayor, was $5,000, a max of $5,000 for preliminary phase, and then a total not to exceed $10,000 for, and that way, if they only spent $2,000 during the preliminary phase, then they have up to $8,000 for the investigatory phase, rather than $5,000 and $5,000. But if they go all the way through the process, they can never get more than $10,000.
So that makes sense, because a reminder, the first phase is 60 days, the second day is 180. So setting the same amount for each phase is a little bit maybe unrealistic given the number of hours that may go into it.
Yeah, no, I like that, up to 10,000 max.
Are we in
the,
section 7?
We're on the one that says customary hourly
Okay.
rate.
So 6, add language limiting reimbursement to customary hourly legal rates. We need a yes or no on that.
So what?
Up to 10,000, that takes. Oh,
That is the next section.
Let's not put that in there,
Well,
because
you all need to vote on that.
we want to not put in there.
Oh, no. Hands for no.
Hands for no.
Hands for no.
Hands for no.
Thank you. Amy's over here having a seizure, so she got her answer.
What are we on? 7. So this one says all requests come to council.
Thank you. I think Zach had mentioned consent agenda, and I think that's fine.
So 5 and not to exceed 10, 5 for the preliminary, not to exceed 10 in total, and they would come to the council on consent agenda? Is that what you're saying? Is everybody okay with that?
I guess my question is, because you can request things come off of consent agenda with this.
Anybody can. Any counselor can make that request.
And then that makes me worry that that could be retaliatory if somebody says they want it off the consent agenda to discuss, and then now it's going to be a yes or a no.
Well, I mean, it's part of the rules that somebody can request, and whether it's appropriate for them to do it or not is something that could occur. But this is agreeing to just have it be on consent rather than it coming to the council as the rule. So of course anybody, I mean, I don't have a good answer for you there. Mm-hmm. It's part of the rules. You can request that something come off consent. If somebody's doing that inappropriately, then other counselors should address that. And that could be dealt with at that time. But we can't like kind of try to cover everything. That makes sense?
Is this where we would specify the information provided in the consent agenda being the OGEC report?
That has not been specified or brought up until this point, so sometimes that's like 60 pages. We could provide you a link, which would probably be more appropriate, and you can go look if you need to, but we're not bringing anything that's not dismissed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just think the dismissal in their report upon that, I know
like the last one I saw was literally 60 pages, so I'm not like pontificating that it might be. So keep that in mind. It's going to dominate your entire agenda packet.
So are you good with the link?
I mean, if everybody else is okay with a link, that's fine. I just think that is information that needs to be provided more than to just us, to the public.
Okay, so 5 for preliminary, not to exceed 10 in total. Goes on consent, and a link will be provided for the OGEC report. That's what you guys are voting on right now.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty, we're on number 8, limitations of prohibited reimbursements. Clarify that costs unrelated to defending the ethics complaints, such as transportation costs, time off work, are not eligible for reimbursement. What's that?
Should be a quick yes or no.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, alrighty. Number 10, revise to reflect that all reimbursement requests are subject to city council consideration.
We already did that in section 7. So
At this point, that one's redundant.
okay, I think we have our marching orders.
Yep, got it.
And that is related to what Andrea said. You can put it on the consent agenda. Anybody can pull it off. So we're going to have a discussion on it, it's fine. But if it turns out to be a vote, I still want to know what the criteria is going to be. So if we're going to vote, what are we voting on? Because we know what the criteria is. It has to be dismissed, it has to be all that stuff. So if we're going to vote on whether or not the criteria is correct, then what are we really voting on?
So I think that the criteria that we're voting on is whether or not it was dismissed, but hopefully, hopefully it's not a occurrence where people actually ask to have it removed from the agenda. But I mean, I think the main criteria, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the complaint or action was dismissed.
Correct, yep. That's,
So-
yeah, that it be dismissed, or that it's been dismissed, and proof that it's been dismissed, yep.
So it's not a tough one unless it's not dismissed.
If it's not dismissed, it's not on the agenda at all.
Right, so that's the question is why would we pull it off and say there's a council decision to be made? Because you either didn't go over the 10,000, you had to have it dismissed. All those things are cut and dried no matter who you are. So why would we pull it off and say now we're going to vote on whether or not you get your 10,000 or not? There's no reason to do that.
I wasn't saying that there was a reason to do it. I'm just saying somebody could make the request. And what I think Ellen just said is the criteria is just that it's been dismissed. So if somebody did make that request, it'd be kind of ridiculous, and the proof's right there. And so, reasonable minds agree, like, okay, it's been dismissed. I don't know what we're talking about.
So that was my question. Do we need to put that in as part of the rules that if somebody should pull it off the consent agenda, that is based strictly on the criteria, nothing else? So nobody else can turn around and say, hey, we're changing this slightly and I don't think you should get your money and stuff like that. It's either you qualify or you don't.
Number 6 has the eligibility for reimbursement, and I don't see anything in there that, I mean, I guess if somebody said, oh, they didn't actually pay the legal fees or something, somebody could question some of these, you can look at them. They're in 6, the eligibility for reimbursement. You can't base it on something that's outside of that eligibility. The decision's based on that, those criteria. You have to check those boxes off.
So you don't think we need anything in our new write-up here that says if it gets pulled off consent agenda, it has to be based strictly on any decision by council has to be based strictly on the eligibility requirements?
if that's something you want to put forward and you want a statement in there that says that, then you can, I mean, you guys can decide that.
Think we need it or not?
I think it's redundant. I think because they are the eligibility requirements, it kind of, those are the requirements in that word.
We don't need it? Okay, we won't. What else do you need from us then?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we are on number 8, Fir Grove Field Improvement Project, the Umpqua Health Alliance grant.
Good evening. Two things for the council tonight. And the first one, as the mayor said, is acceptance of the Umpqua Health Alliance grant for improvements at Fir Grove. In August of 2025, staff submitted a grant application to Umpqua Health Alliance for the Fir Grove multi-use turf field project. Umpqua Health Alliance approved the application and awarded the city $666,000 and $666,320 through the Share Support Health for All through Reinvestment Grant Program. The issue for council is whether to authorize the city manager to execute the grant agreement. Just a little reminder, on August 24th of 2020, Umpqua United Soccer Club presented a conceptual plan to the council and requested to make major field improvements to the fields at Fir Grove. The plan included removing a section of the grass fields and replacing with 2 artificial turf fields, lighting and seating improvements as well. The council unanimously approved the request by Umpqua United Soccer with the condition that all funding is secured prior to beginning the project. On June 10th of 2024, the council again unanimously approved utilizing ARPA funding to proceed with the design and floodplain study for the turf improvement project. On August 4th of 2025, the council authorized staff to begin seeking funding opportunities for these improvements. Fir Grove has been used for sports fields for approximately 50 years. Fir Grove was home to youth and high school baseball until the Sunshine Park was built about 25 years ago. The baseball fields were moved to Sunshine, and Fir Grove was renovated to soccer fields. As I mentioned earlier, the project will install 2 turf fields. One field will be sized for high school play, and the other field will be sized for collegiate level soccer games. Both fields will be striped to allow for additional users. That may include adult and youth soccer, lacrosse, and football. The project will also include lighting, perimeter fencing of the playing surface, and ADA accessible viewing areas. With the current field configuration, it can be difficult for spectators with mobility issues to navigate the fields. There is a high demand for field space, and by converting the 2 fields to artificial turf and adding lighting, this will greatly increase the capacity of the space and serve more youth and adults in our community. This will not only benefit soccer, but other users as well. Umpqua Health Alliance notified staff that the city will receive $666,320 from the Share Grant Program. The current cost estimate for construction of the Fir Grove project is approximately $3 million. Part Parks projects are typically funded through a combination of grant funding, park improvement funds, the Stewart Trust Fund for those occurring within Stewart Park. This project may also qualify for the use of transient lodging tax, as it will increase the ability to host tournament play and attract visiting competitors. Staff will continue to pursue additional grant opportunities, and Umpqua United Soccer has indicated they will undertake fundraising efforts to support the project. Staff is expecting the grant agreement shortly and anticipates a fairly short turnaround time for execution. This funding will potentially serve as match funding for future grant opportunities. Tonight, the council can authorize the city manager to execute the grant agreement with Umpqua Health Alliance, request additional information, or not authorize the city manager to execute the grant agreement. Staff recommends the council authorize the city manager to execute the Umpqua Health Alliance agreement for $666,320. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I move to authorize the city manager to execute the grant agreement with Umpqua Health Alliance in the amount of $666,320 for the Fir Grove Field Improvement Project.
Second.
Any discussion? Tom?
I have to say I still don't like the idea of having turf fields. I think there's a lot of people out there that would rather they were not turf fields. I like the natural grass concept. It's healthier. It's not as dangerous, costs less, and it's more human friendly. So I would vote against it.
Okay. Anybody else? Discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. And opposed? What do we got here? 3, 4, 5. 5-1, motion carries. Number 8, letter B, Sunshine Park Trails Expansion Bid Award Recommendation.
All right, this one's been about 5 years in the making, so glad to finally bring it to you tonight. The city recently received bids for the Sunshine Park Trail Expansion Project on January 22nd of this year. And the issue for the council tonight is whether to award the construction contract. On May 24th, 2021, the City Council adopted resolution number 2021-12, authorizing and supporting the application for an Oregon Parks and Recreation Department Recreational Trails Program grant for trails expansion at Sunshine Park. The 2008 Roseburg Parks Master Plan recommends the development of additional trails at Sunshine Park to provide access for walking, biking, and other trail users. This project consists of 3 different trail types totaling 2.9 miles, providing something for everyone. The extension of the existing Universal Access Trail will provide a trail experience that complies with the American with Disabilities Act. Capable of handling wheelchair use, the path will be a minimum of 5 feet wide and no grades exceeding 5%. The addition of cross-country trails will provide a classic trail ride experience, and flow-style contour trails will provide a more bike and trail running optimized experience which consists of frequent grade reversals, in-slope turns, faster speeds, and slightly steeper slopes overall. In June of 2021, staff applied for and receive grant funding through the Oregon Parks and Rec Department Recreational Trails Grant Program. Notice to proceed for this project was issued by the Oregon Parks and Rec in July of this year. The notice to proceed and bidding of the project was delayed when the city was denied a conditional use permit by Douglas County. The property was eventually annexed into the city and appropriately zoned for park use. The project was bid for advertisement on January 5th, 2026. Bids were opened on January 22nd, 2026, and we received 2 bids, and they're summarized in your memo. There's 2 schedules in your memo. Schedule A is base bid to construct the trails. Schedule B is an alternate to add 1.5 inches of crushed rock to the trail surface, mix it in with the native materials, and then compact it. It is anticipated this will not be needed on all of the trails, all the 2.9 miles of the trails, just some of the lower lying trails. As we get up on the slopes, we anticipate there'll be more shale and rock conditions up higher. The lowest bidder, Nature Bound Construction's bid was $293,398.27. The engineer's estimate on this job was $296,300. And I looked back at when this trail system was originally designed in 2020, and the engineer's estimate at that time was $231,000. I looked at inflation over the last 5 years, and factoring that in, today's estimate would be $288,000. So right in the same ballpark as the numbers we received. The fiscal year 25-26 adopted bike trail fund includes $300,000 for this project. The Oregon Parks and Recreational Trails Grant will fund $148,289 of this project. Adding a 5% contingency to the bid gives a total estimated project cost of $308,068.27. The existing adopted park improvement fund does have some additional funds if we do happen to go over the $300,000. It is not anticipated, as I mentioned earlier, that Schedule B for $110,000 is likely we will not be using all of that. The city has 45 days from bid opening to accept or reject all bids. If awarded, the contractor will be issued notice to proceed in March. The construction contract requires the project be completed by June 30th of this year. The Oregon Parks and Rec grant agreement allows for a completion date of August 31st, 2027. Tonight, the council has options to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder, Nature Bound Construction, for $293,398.27, request additional information, or reject all bids. Funds have been budgeted and are available to construct this project. The bid appears to be both responsive and responsible. The Parks Commission discussed this project at their February 4th meeting. The commission unanimously recommended that the council award the project to Nature Bound Construction. And with that, I would be happy to answer questions, and I think we may have some folks in the audience that want to speak on this as well.
Okay, let's start with questions from council. Any questions? Ellen?
Just one. I know this has been going on for quite a while, but do you recall any direct conversation with Nordic Veneer about, like, you know, any impacts this would have on their permit or anything?
Can you repeat
Yeah,
that,
I'm sorry.
please?
I said that pretty fast and probably mumbling on my way out. I did too much speaking in one of the previous agenda items. Do you, I know this project has been going on for quite a while, but do you remember having any conversations with Nordic Veneer and whether or not this project would have any impact, like with their air permits?
Nordic Veneer was involved in the land use processes. They showed up for the hearings and expressed their concerns. And through the process, we did work with the neighbors that had concerns and mitigated some of their issues. Nordic, if I recall, Nordic's biggest concern was they didn't want, and this was a concern back when the park was built in '99, that they didn't want that to impact their operations. But they didn't really express concerns with the trail system going in.
Okay. Yeah, mine is going to get way too technical for this, so thank you for that.
Ryan, you probably don't have the diagram for the trails, so we can kind of see the layout. See, there's the blue one. I don't know if that's the steep one, and there's the green one. And there looks like there's an orange one right there near the parking lot. Is that the beginning trail for beginners?
So the orange one is an existing paved trail that's out there currently. Trail number 5, the light blue trail, that'll be the ADA accessible trail. That does not exceed slopes over 5% or more than a 2% cross slope. The dark blue trail is what they call the flow trail. That's the steeper, faster, has more turns trail with short sections that are up to a 20% slope with an average of 7 to 9% slope. The light green trails is the longer trail system. That's about 1.8 miles in the map you have. Average slope of 5% with some short sections up to 15%.
And it goes in phases, so is one trail done first before the other trail, like the blue first or green first or whatever?
That's going to be up to the contractor. He has the site to construct the trails with that completion date of June 30th.
This project's all phase 1. Phase 2 would be a future project.
Okay. Zach?
You had mentioned for Schedule B, the potential additional gravel if needed. What were the specifics that you had as far as how much gravel? Did you have the size of the gravel that it was?
So the volume of rock that's identified in Schedule B would put 1.5 inches of rock 4 feet wide on that 2.9 miles. Like I said, we definitely don't see having to use that 100% when we get into some of those upper slopes.
Oh, so it's just an in-case part?
Correct.
Okay.
And the intent is to mix that rock in with the native soils to create a better compacted and balanced surface that'll wear longer.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I will honestly say I'm quite surprised at the variance in these two bids. That's quite a large, that's almost 20% different when you're talking about the both A and B combined. What within those bids, what made the difference for those?
As part of the bid, we required the bidders to be professional trail builder certified. There's not a lot of those in Oregon.
Yeah.
It could just be scheduled workload, and the number 2 bidder had enough work already in the queue this spring, and with our completion date of June 30th, there could be a factor of throwing a number out there, and if it works, and they will, assume some liquidated damages and not make that June 30th deadline.
I guess the reason I'm asking though is I was wondering, do you know, as far as the design for the trails, is the structure that they plan to build for both of them the same as far as like the thickness of the actual depth of the trails, the compaction of the gravel? There's a lot to building trails, especially when it comes to bikes. There's a lot to that system.
Yeah, good question. So this trail layout and design, how the curves and the berms will be built, was designed by the number 2 bidder, Ptarmigan.
Okay.
We hired them in 2020 to put this plan together and the specs. So they've been involved in this project all along. Not sure why their bid was higher, but they're very familiar with the project.
So Ryan, when you said earlier that the estimate that was done back then, that was from Ptarmigan?
Yeah, March of 2020, Ptarmigan again designed the project, and they also put that estimate together for the 230,000. So again, as I forecasted that forward, that estimate from 2020 should have been 288,000 total.
So the plan is the same, just who's constructing it.
Correct.
How do you guys define responsible when it says award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder?
So
Is
we
that
look
just
at
license?
several things. One, we look at their CCB license, their insurance, their bonding. On this one, we ask for that professional trail builders certification. They also have to submit their first tier contractors on the day of bid opening. So there's several things that we have to check off and submit when we award the project.
Okay, thank you.
It's statutory. It's Oregon statute that includes what is included under responsible bidder.
Is there, so I can look that up according to the statute and it'll,
ORS 279, sorry, 279C.
thank you.
So, Ryan, you said that, I think you said, and tell me if I misheard you, that mostly it's going to be the lower trails that are going to have the gravel? The lower elevation, I should say?
That's what we're anticipating. If you're familiar with the terrain out there, there's some very steep slopes that face south, and we anticipate the soil levels will be fairly shallow in those upper slope areas.
Okay, so you're going to have any single track dirt trails? Or most of them, are all of them going to be wide enough for ADA?
No, they won't all be wide enough. Just that light blue trail number 5 on the drawing, that'll be 5 feet wide. The beginner trails are going to be about 4 feet wide, and then some of the flow contour trails, the steeper ones, you'll see sections where the trail will be 3 feet wide.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan, can you explain to us what is meant when you refer to a 2%, 5% grade that off of level?
Yeah, so just for reference, typically when sidewalks are built around town, the cross slope from the face of curb to the building or to the back of sidewalk does not exceed 2%. That's a 1/4 inch in a foot. Rise in a foot of run, but just to visualize what 2% looks like, sidewalks are to be ADA compliant are put in with less than a 2% cross slope.
Does that translate into degrees?
Oh, it does, yeah. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, Evan, we're going to call you up. You signed up, and we'll hear from you.
Thank you very much. My name's Evan Cruz. I live out in Garden Valley, but I'm also the coach of the youth mountain bike team and a member of the mountain bike club. So I'd like to thank everybody who's been involved, including the council, for the 5-year process of making this happen. I think they usually happen a little bit faster than that, but there's a lot of people that worked exceptionally hard on what shouldn't have been this hard of a project. And my community, the kids I work with, and the other mountain bikers in the area are very thankful. We attended the Parks Commission meeting, and it was a very lively discussion. And make sure I get everything here with my notes. You know, and the topic has come up here, what's the difference between these two contractors? From a rider's perspective, Ptarmigan Trails is a top-tier trail contractor anywhere in the United States or the world. They have several installations that are nationally known, and in my opinion, the art form that goes along with constructing trails is included in that price, and they're a premium artist. The discussion we had with the Parks Commission revolved around, do we really have a choice because of the bids? And the answer was no. And the mountain bike community, we'd like to see this trail get put in. Waiting another year or risking rejecting bids to try again and possibly end up with the same result or worse didn't seem like a good option to us. So we're in support of this bid being accepted, construction moving forward, and the mountain bike community being involved as much as we can to ensure that we end up with a good product. One possibility would be to hire the designer as a quality assurance advisor. The Nature Bound Construction does have some portfolio of mountain bike specific trails, but it's not as extensive. So we think that would be a good idea if it's a possibility to hire the trail designer as a consultant to make sure that quality assurance happens. The reason it's important, most construction projects you can finish and inspect when they're done and see what the quality is, but the durability and the safety of trails is pretty, it's a different beast. I think some of the difference in price might have come from the treatments that are provided to ensure the trail durability. And it's a lot of physical labor. It's slapping trails, maybe using vibroplate on trails. There's some equipment that can be done, but on steep terrain, there's just not a lot that can be done. So it's out with tampers and flat shovels, slapping the dirt to try and kind of knead the top surface to be durable. And the reason that's important is not only can you have erosion ruin infrastructure, but it makes it more dangerous. When water runs down a trail in an undesirable way, it creates grooves that can catch tires. And statistically, mountain biking is a pretty darn safe sport, but those things don't help. So between the volunteer community being out there, able to make repairs and maintain the trails, that's one part of it. But volunteer hours can only do so much, and we're hoping that some oversight on construction could help minimize issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Okay, any other follow-up questions, or are we ready for a motion?
Can I ask
Zach?
Evan a question, actually?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to just ask, you said that they're a nationwide trail builder?
Yes.
The ones that...
They're nationally known.
They're nationally known.
Yeah.
And I'm not a mountain biker, I don't know much about this, but I did grow up skateboarding, and I do know that there is a whole thing when it comes to specific companies that build certain skate parks. People will travel specific to that. Is that a thing in that world as well?
Yes.
If people know that it's within if the specific people build, like Dreamland skate parks, for instance, was a thing when I was young. Those people.
I'm going to chime in and say Ptarmigan Trails got their start building skate parks.
They started?
Yeah, they built some of the skate parks up in Portland. But a trail system this size, I don't think that we're going to see the draw.
Okay.
I think getting a quality trail that gets a lot of miles, gets heat maps on Strava and posts on social media is going to be as much of a draw. And it's just important that we get started on that process of bringing people to the community to use it. But I do think that explains part of the difference in price.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And Ryan, do you know where these two companies are their hometowns?
Neither one of these companies are local. Ptarmigan's from the Oregon coast, and Northbound Construction is out of the Grants Pass area.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
I move to award the Sunshine Park Trails Expansion Project to the lowest responsible bidder, Nature Brown Construction, for $293,398.27 upon expiration of the 7-day notice of intent to award period.
Second.
A second, any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. And thanks. Yep. Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Okay, we're on number 9, items. Any items to come forward? Nikki.
So 2 things. Just a reminder that tomorrow there's going to be quite a bit of activity in the southeast Roseburg area. There is a simulated hazmat large-scale event, so we're going to have a lot of different agencies from out of town participating in that exercise. So if you get calls from panicked people, it's just an exercise. It is not a real emergency, but you will see a lot of activity. Roads will be closed. Please don't try and get in to take a peek, because it's simulating a hazardous spill that is going to kill a bunch of people. So we have to close off a fairly significant area. It's going through that whole exercise of what if something happens on the railroad. So appreciate all of the effort of Douglas County Emergency putting this together and bringing all these teams together to do this exercise, but just reminding folks that you might get calls.
Can you remind us where it's located?
It was supposed to be secret, but
it's supposed to be secret. It will be in the downtown area.
The downtown area? Downtown, okay.
Southeast. Item number 2, the Respect for Law Enforcement banquet is coming up here pretty quick. So it is on Friday, February 20th at 5:30 at the fairgrounds. So if you would like to attend, can you please let the chief know by February 12th, which is Thursday, by end of day Thursday, please.
Okay. Ellen?
Thank you. The only item that I would like to bring forward is I think we've all been getting a lot of notices about the time, place, and manner and all the camping and issues going on at the point. I would love to get that on the agenda. Getting a lot of pressure from constituents on that. So I would love to have a discussion or maybe hear from the admin folks, you know, what the plan is going forward for that area. Because it is, you know, kind of turning into a campground, and we're all getting a lot of notices on that. So,
Zach?
Can I just ask to that? Because we had started that conversation. Like, I do remember a very specific one where we were talking about that, and we ran out of time, and it just never came back on. So is that what you're talking in regards to? Is that conversation?
yeah, yes, I don't think we are finished that one, but I mean, the situation continues to evolve. Yeah. So yes, updated to today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to bring up in the same vein that we do have a lot of homeless people out there, and we've been trying to do something about it for, I don't know, 5-10 years, quite a while, and we need to do something. I think that we need to find a place that we can establish a campground so that our police can take somebody to a camp where they can have some dignity rather than living in the mud and the rain and the cold out there. I think, really need to establish a camp, and hopefully from there we can transition them into regular housing. But I think it's real important that we come forth and establish a place. And so the next time a place comes up, I think we ought to really consider adopting it. We need to move forward with this. That's what I'd like to say.
Okay. Any other items? Did I cut you off, by the way? Oh, okay. All right. All righty. We are moving to executive session, so I'll read that script. It's 9:15. We'll start pretty quick right after I finish reading this thing. City of Roseburg City Council will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660, number 2, letter D. Subsection 2D allows the council to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session. Representative of the news media and all other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. The council will not make any decision in executive session. At the end, we will be adjourned. Okay, it's 9:15. We will start hopefully by 9:20.